Reading to you from my autobiography entitled I Count My Life by Sabbaths, Part 2, My Childhood, Chapter 4, Emotional Problems. In those early days, emotional problems began to manifest. I never realized the causes or significance of them until many years later in college, and I began to take psychology classes, especially abnormal psychology. It was then that I learned that high stress can cause a number of emotional issues that may also have physical manifestations. Indeed, later on, when my Uncle Nathan accused me of lying about the events we were trying to cope with, I wrote him a letter telling him if he didn't believe me, he should believe the symptoms. The evidence was there for a discerning eye to see. Ethel. When stress got high, Ethel would just go limp and pass out. I recall many times when my mother would gather her up in her arms, running up and down the steps, asking everyone who could listen to pray. Eventually, Ethel would come out of it, and life would go on. She was only about 2 years old when these behaviors manifested. Later, as a teenager, Ethel developed anorexia nervosa, and she still suffers from it to a certain degree. Beth would complain of tummy aches. Our pediatrician, Dr. Bertram Roth, explained to Mom that having 3 children in 2.5 years, with Beth as the middle child, was most likely the cause. She was lacking in attention, and this was her way to get it. He said there was nothing wrong with her stomach. She needed attention, and it worked. When Mom gave Beth attention, the tummy aches went away. Mom developed eczema on her ankle. This patch was a circle of about 4 inches in diameter. Mom always wore hose, so the running and scabbing, not to mention the terrible itching, made things very difficult for her. Many doctors prescribed many things, but nothing seemed to work. Finally, Dr. Boynton Booth, a dermatologist, seemed to have some success with purple poultices. As I began to research it later, I learned that this condition was directly related to stress. Me. There are 2 major responses individuals have to stress and danger: fight or flight. I didn't have the option of fleeing, so I fought. What this meant in practical terms is that I internalized all the stress and reacted with anger. I developed serious anger issues, which probably manifested in an awful way when David Van Deventer, a story that I'll tell later, confronted me. My wife, children, and everyone have witnessed my anger issues. I didn't really come to grips with it or even understand these things until I went to a 2-week training session at Narramore Foundation. But this is another story for later. Chapter 5, Dr. Bertram Roth. As soon as Mom and Dad moved to Indianapolis, they began to search for a pediatrician for us. Dad checked with the medical exchange and came up with the name of a Jewish physician who had offices on College Avenue. When they met for the first time, they formed a fast friendship. Dad was beginning in the ministry, and Dr. Roth was beginning his practice. He made a pact with Dad that he would always treat his children for free. The only thing Dad had to pay for was live serum shots. Everything else was free. Talk about a boon. My sisters and I loved to visit Dr. Roth because not only did he take time with each of us, but he always had a smile on his face. He was tall with black wavy hair, and he wore black wire-rimmed glasses. He carried juicy fruit sticks in his pocket, and at the end of the visit, he would give us each a stick. We were also allowed to go to a bottom drawer in the examining room and pick out a toy. I don't know what my sisters took, but I always took one of 2 things: a little plastic bird that, when filled with water, would make bird sounds, or a rubber razor noisemaker that made fart sounds when you blew through it. Once, when Beth was getting a shot, as Mom held her, she screamed, "Jesus!" That is a response we learned early when we were facing danger or emergencies. I'll never forget the lecture we got on the way home in our car. We were told that Dr. Roth was a Jewish man, and he may not approve of that. We were told that saying that name was akin to cussing as far as Dr. Roth was concerned. We never did it again, but I learned through the years that wasn't so. Dr. Roth was a loving, amiable man who knew that my father was a pastor and he was non-judgmental. He treated me until I graduated from college. Years later, when my wife and I began our own family, who did we want to go to with our children? To Dr. Roth, of course. For me, he was akin to a father figure, and I had the greatest respect for him. When we went for our first exam, it was at new offices at 86th Street in Meridian. I went fully expecting to pay for his medical assistance, so it was quite a surprise when he took me aside after the exam was over and told me that he was going to treat us for free, just as he did my dad, with the same stipulation: we only had to pay for the live serum shots. My children, like myself, developed the same love and respect for Dr. Roth. He would always ask about my mom and dad taking so much time with us. And guess what? He continued to dispense juicy fruit gum and had the same toys in the bottom drawer of the exam room. And guess what else? My two boys chose the same gifts I chose. And this leads to another short anecdote. When we got home after a visit, my oldest son went outside with his little bird water whistle. He sat out of sight beneath the window of our neighbor's home. As he blew the whistle, our neighbor, Lena Earl, called her children to the window. "Come here, children. Listen to the beautiful music of the birds out there. Isn't God good to allow us to hear this?" Later, she learned it was Todd. Yes, God was good to the Schmidt family, allowing us the blessing of Dr. Roth in our lives. Please tune in for the next episode.